Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for refusing to leave, okay? Refusing to the wagon, Mr. Menzies.
I would say to the Toronto Police, the RCMP, the York Regional Police, and any other police force that thinks it can handle Rebel News abusively, and that is think twice. We will sue you, we will find you, and we will come to court with you. We will outlast you because unlike you, we actually believe in something called freedom. Ezra Levant here. We're standing outside the Toronto courts. It's called the Ontario Courts of Justice. I don't know if we got justice today, but we got something. Standing next to me is David. David, they threw out, they dropped, they withdrew, they stayed, they abandoned the last of the Toronto police charges against you. How do you feel?
You know, in a way, I'm disappointed, Ezra. And I know a W is a W, as they say in the sports world, whether it's a blowout or a default. But in one respect, I would have loved to have seen the police on the stand and explain why I was arrested twice in March and April for practicing journalism in the public square, while to the left and to the right of us were the pro-Hamas Hitler Youth Movement chanting genocide, and nothing we can do here. They're blocking streets. Nothing we can do here. But on the presumption you might ask a question, because in each case, Ezra, I never got a question out, that might offend and enrage the mob. We're going to arrest you, I guess, for your own good, and you'll go to jail for your own good or what have you. I just would have loved to have seen them make the case, because to me, there is no case.
You've been arrested 4 times this year. All 4 of them have been thrown out or abandoned. All 4 of them were false, therefore. False arrest, false imprisonment. They've assaulted you. They burned up your time. I don't know how many times you've been at court. I was here because I heard that they might be dropping the case today. And we sat in there for 46 minutes while every low-life thug and criminal in this town was paraded through. Yep. There was a guy for concealing a weapon. There was like every thug. And amongst all these thugs was a journalist who was charged by the police, thrown in with the thugs. I was seething by the time it came to your name. Yep. And the prosecutor, you know, the French word ennui, it's not just bored, it's bored and tired. Oh, well, oh, who's next? Oh, David Menzies. Who's got anyone know what the prosecutor, I wish she were animated by hatred. Yeah. She was animated by bureaucratic inertia, couldn't give a damn, didn't know her file. Your worship, I don't know the number. What's going on? Do we have to delay it again? Like incompetence. And every single person in that room was getting paid no matter what happened. Oh, yeah. Guilty or not guilty, delay. They don't care. They are they're cogs in the system. And the prosecutor, and they withdrew the charges against you. They didn't even have the courtesy to say why. Yep. To say this wasn't in the public interest, yep. Let alone, God forbid, someone in this gross system actually says, sorry, I'm looking at this staggeringly large building. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of tax dollars went to build it, and it looks like its purpose, which is just to grind people down. Yep. And amongst all these thugs, there's you, and they trapped you in this system as a punishment in itself. You were acquitted of all the matters, but you were punished nonetheless.
Yeah, and you know, Ezra, I'm a little baffled because I thought my charge was trespass, but it came up in court, failure to leave the premises, which I guess is really technically the same thing. But I mean, if we go back to that day on April 7th, the 6-month vigil for the Israeli victims of October 7th, more than 2,000 people in the square, including Pierre Poilievre leading the vigil, the pro-Hamas having the chutzpah to chant for genocide during a vigil. But who asked me to leave the premises? I mean, it wasn't like, remember when Afro-Indigenous Rising some 4 years ago illegally camped out for 3 weeks, breaking 11 sections of the Trespass Act. At least back then you had City Hall security telling the police, hey, we don't like those independent media types. They might incite the mob. But this officer, Chang, badge number 7724, he never once said what I was doing as being illegal. He was just frog marching me away, and when he was getting handsy with me, I asked if I was under arrest, and he went right to arrest mode. But the point is, Ezra, City Hall security, anyone running City Hall, never said, I think, to the police, we want that guy off the square, which is when the police would act. They were acting on their own volition, and that is literally right behind us, Ezra, the town square. Yep. If you can't be there as a citizen, if you can't be practicing journalism there, where can you do it?
David, what you described reminds me of the book by Franz Kafka called The Trial. And let me just read, and this is a translation, I think it was written in German. This is the first sentence of that book. Someone must have been telling lies about Joseph. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but one morning he was arrested. That's a great first sentence in a book. I was live tweeting this in court today. I said, why was David Menzies arrested? Who complained? What law did he break, and exactly how did he break it? Who was the victim of the supposed crime? None of these things are known to us. It doesn't matter. All that matters was that the Toronto police needed some excuse to stop David from asking questions. The abusive system that actually doesn't care, and that the world doesn't care. And I can only imagine how many times this happens to people who do not have the resources to fight back in any way. David, we are going to turn the tables. I remember when Churchill remarked on the North African campaign, he said, I think it was there, he said, this is not the end, and it's not the beginning of the end, but it's the end of the beginning. And so this is the end of the beginning. The police shot their shot, so to speak. God forbid they actually shot a shot. The police have arrested you again and again, and this was the last of them thrown out. That's the end of the beginning. Now it's the beginning of the end. We're going to go after them. We've already filed the lawsuit. We've already got a lawyer, Lawrence Greenspan. We're suing not just for the actual damages done to you that we can measure. You were arrested, you were handcuffed, you were assaulted. But our Charter of Rights allows courts to punish governments that are abusive by giving what's called charter damages. It's the reason why Omar Khadr got $10.5 million from Trudeau. Omar Khadr didn't actually suffer any harm. He's a terrorist, murderer, thug. Yep. But because his charter rights were violated, he got $10.5 million from taxpayers. The Toronto police will obviously continue to keep harassing you and all of their other enemies until someone, namely a judge, gives them a $10.5 million bill for it, and maybe they'll think twice about coming after Rebel News and David Menzies.
Wouldn't that be wonderful, Ezra? But I got to tell you, I am of mixed emotions, because despite everything that's happened to me and us, I still back the blue. You got to back the blue. This whole defund the police, that's nonsense. What do you have then? The rule of the jungle? I have a lot of respect for the individual men and women on the Toronto Police Service and other police services that I've interacted with. I truly think there's something bigger at play. I think someone maybe in the brass, maybe beyond the brass, maybe in the mayor's office, I don't know. I'm not claiming to have the answers, but they are being directed. I mean, when you see this footage of those thugs actually carrying out physical assault against Efren and I'm the one that gets arrested, I can't even imagine the most incompetent police officer making such a bad call. I think there's some unspoken strategy behind the scenes, behind the curtain, Ezra, and in disclosure, if this goes to trial, wow, I would love to find those answers.
Well, I promise you, as long as we live and breathe, we will pursue this. And the Toronto Police Service should think twice about arresting you again. I remember in Australia when our Australian reporter, Avi Yamini, kept getting arrested, and finally we took him to court. And they realized that they were in deep trouble. They actually gave him a letter of apology. Avi turned it into a T-shirt. Then they went after Avi's bodyguard, Daniel, and we sued on his behalf too. And they actually gave him a six-figure settlement. So I would say to the Toronto Police, the RCMP, the York Regional Police, and any other police force that thinks it can handle Rebel News abusively, and that is think twice. We will sue you, we will find you, and we will come to court with you. We will outlast you, because unlike you, we actually believe in something called freedom. Last word to you, David.
Ezra, I just want to say on the Avi Yamini matter and all the other matters that we are fighting, I told you off camera earlier, I was talking about this over dinner with Lady Menzoid, and she said to me, you are so lucky to have a boss like Ezra Levant, somebody that, isn't going to abandon you, you're on your row mate, not only defend our rights, but now the ball is in our hands. We are on offense. You are the Patrick Mahomes of journalism as far as I'm concerned. And now we are going to get accountability from these people. And you know what? It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. This isn't a trifle by any means. And I just want to say, I guess, Ezra, I'm so happy to be a Rebel News reporter. I am so glad you are a lion when it comes to standing up for the rights and freedoms of your employees. So thank you, and anyone out there that wants to contribute with standwithdavid.com, it would be greatly appreciated.
Right on. Well, that is true. We've got 2 lawyers helping on this file now. Sarah Miller, civil litigation expert, who people would remember from the Arthur Pavlovsky case, and Lawrence Greenspan, who I've gotten to know over the last year for his work with Tamara Leach. And I truly believe that Lawrence Greenspan is one of the finest criminal lawyers in the country. In fact, I've told him, I think you were there when I said to him, if I'm ever arrested, I want him representing me. And I know a lot of lawyers, and he would be my personal choice for me if I was ever in a pickle. We are going to flip the script, turn the tables, and go after these human rights abusers at the police. And I hope they see the light, like they did in Australia, and come clean, admit wrongdoing, apologize. But if we have to go the distance to court, I tell you that we will. Go to standwithdavid.com. I enjoy standing with them. Look at the gorgeous, gorgeous truck, which we've been driving around all day today outside this courthouse. Look, one of the things that makes Rebel News different is what David says. We actually sometimes get into the fight. Most of the time we're just telling you the other side of the story. Most of the time we're just showing you what's going on. But every once in a while we say we have to actually do something, because if we don't, who will? If you follow my live tweets today, you'll see I referred to a time 20 years ago in Canada where every news agency in the country would have in the past got together, chipped in $1,000 each, and hired a top lawyer, and it would have intervened in a court case like this today. It was a beautiful idea because it made it cheap, because if 20 different newspapers and radio stations and TV stations all chipped in $1,000, that's not a huge burden for a media company. And it allowed them to get a great lawyer together. It was sort of an all for one and one for all, 3 musketeers. And it showed the courts, look, that this is a very serious freedom of the press issue, and it had a great impact. That used to be called the consortium. That's what they called it when the news companies got together. They don't do that anymore, because Justin Trudeau has colonized them, so they don't care about freedom of speech. They're paid not to care. It falls to Rebel News, which is very bizarre, because we're such a small company, and it's so hard to raise this money in $20 and $50 dribs and drabs. But I tell you, we will.
And Ezra, 2 things on that note. How quickly things have changed. Back when you were the publisher of the Western Standard, when you were the only one in Canada that had the courage to publish the Danish Mohammed cartoons, back then, we're going back some 15 odd years ago, you did have people in the mainstream media coming to bat for you. Today, if you were to do that same thing, I bet you would be 0.0. And you know, I'm no fan of, say, the CBC, the Toronto Star, but if that happened to a CBC or Toronto Star reporter, I would be as outraged as what happened to me that day on April 7th. But there's no quid pro quo. As you've said before, the watchdogs have become Justin Trudeau's lapdogs. They're getting paid by the federal government, which is an inherent and egregious conflict of interest. So we are on our own, my friend, I think.
Well, we're on our own in terms of the establishment. No other media is with us. No other journalism advocacy group is with us. No NGO is with us. We're all alone. No one's on our side except the people. And I'll take those odds every time. From downtown Toronto, standing in front of the glorious Rebel billboard truck, this is Ezra Levant saying, keep fighting for freedom.
Well, folks, as I said, we are now going on offense. We are suing the Toronto Police Service for abridging our charter rights and freedoms. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of money. That's why we need your help. Please, if you can, go to standwithdavid.com, that's standwithdavid.com, and kindly make a donation.